viewing GMT Good Morning Tobago. I am your host, Natalie Sealey-Richardson this morning. And joining me virtually is Tennille Alonzo. And we want to welcome Tennille this morning. She is a retirement and insurance advisor and the founder of Your Goals, Your Plans. And let's welcome Tennille on before I tell you a little bit about her.
Hi, good morning. Good morning, Natalie. How are you doing?
I am well.
Good
Good
morning.
morning, Tennille. And I was just letting our viewers know, Tennille, that you are from the insurance industry and you focus on retirement, and you have founded, this organization, if I can call it, this big movement. I think it has become a movement, your goals, your plans. And there is this challenge that is out there, and you are encouraging people to be a part of this challenge. 500 lives in just 50 days. And of course, I want you to tell us a bit more about that campaign, because we know that you're targeting individuals, organizations, families. You're targeting everybody, because when we hear the word retirement, it really impacts all of us at some point. Sometimes I think we have to reach retirement to plan for it, but people like you will guide us through. So I want you, before we get into talking specifically about what retirement is, I want to spend a little time talking about that movement. 500 lives in just 50 days.
Yes. Well, thank you, Natalie. I think you certainly would have hit the punchline there that too many of us take too long to prepare for retirement. And you can't be prepared for retirement when you're ready to retire, right? You have to
Right.
think about the reality of time. And that is why this challenge exists, because I've seen too many people who wait to plan. And many times, much of that waiting is because they don't know how to begin. All right. They feel overwhelmed, they feel unsure, and typically they push it off until very much later. And that is why I wanted to change that and launch this campaign called 500 Lives in 50 Days. It's really a
Right.
challenge, but as you said, it's a movement, it's a call to action, to get 500 people at minimum to take steps towards preparing for retirement, all within that focused 50-day window.
Right.
And when persons participate, the hope is that they'll have some clarity and confidence, whether they're 25, 45, or even 65. And yes, I said 65 because there are two types of retirement ages in terms of your experience in retirement. There's what I call early retirement, and there is late retirement. And many times at 65, you can see much of the 65-year-olds that we see today look like they're 55, right?
Right.
They're
Yes. Yes.
energetic and they're doing things. And so even if you are in your early 60s, you can still be thinking about how can you prepare for your later retirement years. And by being part of this challenge, you'll have access to tools, you'll have access to support and information that perhaps you didn't have before, and be able to be a little more confident about potentially retiring a little more ready than before. And one of the key things that I've recognized for much of us, especially in the Caribbean, about 60% of Caribbean workers,
Right.
they do not know their retirement number. And I'm hopeful that by the end of this challenge that we would have persons having a lot more information about what they need in order to retire well.
Right. And let's talk about what retirement is, because our whole conversation, this movement surrounds and involves retirement. What is retirement?
Retirement is really that period of time where you leave your primary method of work, and earning income, to something that is more or less where you are dependent on what you have put aside for the years in your later years, in your old age period. And as I said, retirement is really not an age, however, it's a strategy. And I say it's a strategy because you can retire at any age, right? If that is your vision, you could decide, I want to retire at 50, I want to retire at 55,
Right.
65, 70, whatever it is. But it's really a strategy because you have to think about, what is happening in the world right now and prepare financially for that. For example, rising costs, living longer, the unstable job markets, and therefore, in terms of what your strategy is, you have to be very clear that you can't afford to wait if you want to retire well. What we see now is that 1 in 3 people globally work past the official retirement age. So we do have a
Right.
retirement age in the country, and typically right now it's 60, but it is going to most likely increase, and there have been talks around that.
Right.
And what we see is that 1 in 3 people globally work past whatever the official retirement age is because they simply don't feel ready financially. And we're seeing that in the Caribbean too. I'm sure we know of retired people or persons who are supposedly in that age bracket still working.
Right.
And the truth is, the years actually creep really quickly. So if you're younger and you're thinking this topic is not relevant to me, then I really am hopeful that this challenge is going to sensitize and educate,
Mhm.
especially those who are younger and in their mid-professional period, that they really cannot afford to wait. And I'll give an example, Natalie. Let's say you are 25 years old, and yes, I said 25 years old, and you decided, I want to start preparing for retirement. A simple strategy of, let's say, saving $500 a month could actually net you a little over 1.5 or $2 million compounding by the time you're 65.
Right.
Now, if you are 45, even if you doubled that, you'll end up with less than a third of that money. So the difference here is time. And that is why this conversation is so urgent. It's really about giving yourself and your family the security and the dignity that you deserve in retirement. And that's why at the heart of the entire challenge, I'm asking the question to all those who are participating: why prepare now?
And I love the concept of looking at retirement as a strategy, because I think too often it's pegged to that age, because you hear people talk about, oh no, I'm not retiring yet, I have 3 more years, or even young persons who are just in that workspace, and if they may have a frustrating day and they say, oh, I have to take this until I am 60 years old. So it really is ingrained in us, and that's the concept we have. Retirement is pegged to that age, and the countdown is on the day you begin to work. So I really appreciate that concept of looking at retirement as a strategy, because we don't have to wait until we're 60 plus to retire.
Exactly.
And
Precisely.
when you talk about retirement as well, does it only impact that individual? How do families, communities become a part of this process?
Well, the thing is, when we think about retirement planning, most of us think only about savings. But we're talking about the entire gamut of your financial situation, right? Everything from your insurance reserves to your investments, your emergency funds, everything. Because realistically speaking, think about your vulnerable self. Most likely, when you are in your older years, you may get ill. All right. Your income is fixed typically because you're probably not earning active income. You're earning what you have put aside, passive income, whether it is through, let's say, rental income, which is not always stable, your
Right.
pensions, etc. The fact of the matter is, if you don't have proper buffers and reserves and investments and other things, just as a typical young professional would have, if you don't have all of those things in retirement, you can find yourself actually becoming poor in retirement. So one illness can wipe you out, literally.
That is so
One
true.
long-term chronic illness where you may need long-term care, you may have someone having to come at the home to take care of you, could wipe you out, and it could impact your family if you are not prepared. So this is why it's a community conversation, because we tend to see many retirees actually living below their standard, or being I wouldn't want to say a burden, but a financial concern to their younger family members. And we see, for example, we have this thing called the sandwich generation. And that's where we have professionals who have young families and are taking care of older parents.
Right.
And I
Yes.
often say to parents in particular, your focus in preparing for your retirement is also you caring about your children when they are young, when they are now in, that stage of taking care of their own family, that you don't sabotage their future and your grandchildren's future. So it's really a holistic approach. It's also talking about things like your legacy. What do you want to leave behind for those who will come behind you, and how do you prepare? So one of the resources that I have access, that persons will have access to, is a course that I have called the Retire Ready Jumpstart Bundle. And what we discuss there is everything related to your financial management, your mindset. We also look at your estate planning
Right.
and your retirement income sources, because all of those things as topics are relevant whether you are 25, 45, 65, or 85. All
Right.
of those things. Because again, we can only prepare. We don't have guarantees. None of us know if we would live to the ripe old age of 95. We don't
Right.
know that. But the reality is, as adults, we are expected to manage our resources and the things that we've created properly. And so, if you are that kind of individual, you want to not just go with the flow, live once, and do everything right now without thinking about your future. If you want to be that responsible adult, then there is a strategy, there is a method, there is a way to build a structured financial presence that would not only augur well for you in the present, but it will certainly set you up for old age should you have the gift of old age, and that peace of mind that comes with, hey, I've done this the right way. You know what I mean?
Yes, and in our society, many persons live that day-to-day routine. You've heard older parents, if an adult child approaches them about that type of planning, you would hear, you ready for me to dead? Or, nothing is, have you set up a will? What's your estate like? And we don't like to have these types of conversations. And then, God forbid, that person passes on. Everybody's confused. They don't know where bank accounts are. They have no access to it. And for those of you who are listening, and I know Tennille will back me up, because we like to protect so much that sometimes
Yeah.
even a simple bank account that has your name on it, God forbid you pass away, nobody has access to that. That stays with the bank, and the time you get to probate or do anything with that,
Yeah.
it costs you more than what's
And,
in the
and listen,
account.
it's even more than just passing away. There are people who, let's for example, say they get sick and
Right.
they are in a coma
Yes.
and they're in a hospital, and there's no access to the funds to assist them during that period.
Mm-hmm.
Because we in this country have to also recognize that we don't have certain legal frameworks in place at this time. For example, someone may have what we call a medical a power of attorney. In other territories, that's a relevant thing, but in Trinidad and Tobago, it's not. We have the typical power of attorney, which means that the person must be in their right mind in order for you to have access to do business on their behalf.
Right.
However, we don't have what we call a durable power of attorney, which means that if that person is ill or not incapacitated, that your power of attorney is no longer valid when
Right.
that person is in that state. So essentially putting your things, your house in order, whether you are not necessarily dead, but
Right.
you're sick, you're
Yes.
ill, and someone has to do business on your behalf, it's important to have these mechanisms in place
Mm-hmm.
so that you could essentially not create stress, because
Yeah.
that's really what it is. It's about minimizing stress and assisting the people around you to navigate the changes that we
Yes.
typically find
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah.
And so it's really about that
Mm-hmm.
responsible action that we have to
Yeah,
take.
and we definitely have an aging population, and you hear very often, it's so common now, you hear persons who are impacted by dementia or Alzheimer's, and of course those things come into play. I want you to talk to the viewers who may be listening, and they are close to 60, at 60 working still, and they just realize, I never did this. She's talking about planning. I never really thought about it. Is it too late to plan for retirement?
Yeah, I get that all the time. To me, it's too late for me. But I often say it's never too late to take the first step. The key really is about your strategy. It may look a little different from someone else, but it's all about just getting started. So, for example, I've had persons in my either in my courses or in my sessions. There's this gentleman in particular I recall who was in his 50s, and he told me, Tennille, I think I missed my chance. I'm a little too old. But what we did is that we looked at his options. We restructured his savings, for example, taking advantage of the 25% annuity tax incentive that the government offers, right? And we also reviewed his insurance. And once we had that plan in place, he felt hopeful because he had a plan. And really that's what this challenge is about. It's about turning your fear into focus. All right. And of course, if you're younger, your advantage is time. So I would encourage anyone who is, whether you're 25 or you're 50 or 55, even 60, review what you can do today. It's not too late if
Right.
you take action. And this is a free challenge. You can come on and experience it and get even a free consultation with myself. If you just want the encouragement, it's available through this challenge.
Right. And we go for a quick break, Tennille, but when we come back, I want you to speak more how we can be a part of that challenge. And I know in October, we're looking at a very special date. So viewers, we don't want you to go too far. We go for a break, and when we return, we continue this very interesting and timely conversation, if I may add, with Ms. Tennille Alonzo. So wake up and hear my neighbor. 60,000 people fill the skies. Welcome back, viewers. Thank you for staying with us. You are viewing GMT Good Morning Tobago, and I continue my conversation with Ms. Tennille Alonzo, and she is speaking to us about retirement. Have you been planning for your retirement? And remember, it's not just pegged to an age, but it's a strategy. So welcome back, Ms. Alonzo, and I want you to tell us, as I mentioned before going to the break, I want you to tell us how we can be a part of this challenge, this movement.
Wonderful. So it's really simple. Persons just have to join our Retire Ready HQ Facebook community. That's where all the action is happening. From there, you can register for our meet and learns, which happens at least 3 times a week. And that's where you can get into a private Zoom room with me and others, ask your questions. We talk about topical things related to retirement planning. But in that community, you can also invite your friends. And that is where we measure the impact. Because once that community is filled up with persons, we get to engage with them in different ways. And certainly you can engage there by asking questions, leaving comments, and having conversations. My real question and hope is that, we understand that this is not just an individual exercise, that it is a community effort, this question of retirement planning. And so if you're a church, you're a workplace group or a community group, you can join this challenge by being part of the Facebook community and inviting those individuals to also join in. I also have some competitions going on in the group for persons who are, engaging the most, etc. And you want to check that out if you want to be also part of that experience. But we want this to be really about something for whole communities to get behind, because when groups get involved, the ripple effect is so much bigger. And we're talking about how we can impact not just, as I said, our own little groups, but the society in a whole. I think having these types of conversations and challenges would impact us in the long run across the board. Mm-hmm. Yes. So in terms of being part of it, the challenge started on August 30th and it runs until October the 18th. That is the 50-day period. So there's still a lot of time to get involved. And this is about preparing, as I said, for your future. It's about setting an example for your children, your colleagues, and your community. Right. And can you just repeat where we can find that information on social media for those who really want to be a part of that movement? So if you're on Facebook, you could just look for Retire Ready HQ. Retire Ready HQ. You can also check out yourgoalsyourplans.com. For my contact information, it's 467-9944. But certainly just searching for Retire Ready HQ should get you access to the Facebook community where you can join and we can begin the challenge together. And for people who want to delve more, Tennille, because I know you have a book, you have your podcast, where can we find those tools as well? Yes, so I wrote a book called Aligned for Freedom, which helps you align your money, your time, and your energy. And I do reference retirement planning a lot in the book, and that is available on Amazon. Of course, you can get access to it quickly if you go to my website, yourgoalsyourplans.com. I also started a podcast called the Retire Smart, the Uninitiated Guide, because all of us are not experts on retirement because we're not yet retired, right? So
Right.
it's a podcast to really help persons who are uninitiated about retirement to really get the real talk about the real issues that people face. And that you can find on YouTube. If you search for At Your Goals Your Plans, you should see my channel, and the podcast is there. And then I also have a retire ready course which walks you step by step through how to prepare financially for retirement. And you can get that information at retireready.yourgoalsyourplans.com. Again, all of the resources would be also available in in the Facebook group. If you just want to go there, I have various channels of where you can get support. And it's really about giving people the information and also the motivation to act, because we want to retire smart, not by accident, but
Yeah.
by design.
Excellent. And I want to thank you so much. What an interesting conversation. And these are the kind of conversations I think we need to be exposed more to, because it's something you don't hear about while you're in school, even in the workplace. There are some workplaces that will have retirement planning seminars for their employees, but generally you kind of feel you're on your own to figure this out. So thank you so much, Tennille, for sharing your knowledge with us and starting this movement. So if you want to be a part of this 500 Lives in 50 Days challenge, don't sit on it too much. I mean, every day we live, it's one day less and one day closer to that retirement, whether you pegged it to age 60 plus, or when you hit 50, you said, I had enough of this. I want a certain type of life. I want to work on this. I want to work on that. It is possible, but you have to set things in place. So be sure to check that challenge out and be a part of it. And you have, of course, the lovely Miss Alonzo who will guide us as we transition and get ready for this part of our life. So thank you again, Mr. Alonzo. It's a pleasure. And viewers,
It was my pleasure, Natalie. Thank you for having me as well.
you're welcome. Viewers, we go for another quick break. And when we return, I have another guest who would be sitting next to me in studio this time, Mr. Carl Alonzo, as we talk about his music and what's new on the charts for him.
The energy fill the sky.